Chapter 5 of certain relations resembling those created by contract. Section 68, it's quasi contracts, okay. Section 68, claim for necessaries supplied to person incapable of contracting or on his account. If a person incapable of entering into contract or anyone whom he is legally bound to support is supplied by another person with necessaries suited to his condition in life, the person who has furnished such supplies is entitled to be reimbursed from the property of such incapable person. Illustration. First, A supplies B a lunatic with necessaries suitable to his condition in life. A is entitled to be reimbursed from B's property. Second, A supplies the wife and children of B, a lunatic, with necessaries suitable to their condition in life. A is entitled to be reimbursed from B's property. Section 69, reimbursement of person paying money due by another in payment of which he is interested. A person who is interested in the payment of money which another is bound by law to pay and who therefore pays it is entitled to be reimbursed by the other. Illustration. B holds land in Bengal on a lease granted by A, the zamindar. The revenue payable by A to the government being in area his land is advertised for sale by the government. Under the revenue law, the consequences of such sale will be the annulment of B's lease. B, to prevent the sale and the consequent annulment of his own lease, pays to the government the sum due from A. A is bound to make good to B the amount so paid. Okay, section 70. Obligation of person enjoying benefit of non-gratuitous act. Obligation of person enjoying benefit of non-gratuitous act, whatever. When a person lawfully does anything for another person or delivers anything to him, not intending to do so gratuitously, and such other person enjoys the benefit thereof, the latter is bound to make compensation to the former in respect of or to restore the thing so done or delivered. Illustration. First, A tradesman leaves goods at B's house by mistake. B treats the good as his own. He is bound to pay A for them. Second, A saves B's property from fire. A is not entitled to compensation from B if the circumstances show that he intend to act gratuitously. Okay. Section 71, responsibility of finder of goods. A person who finds goods belonging to another and takes them into his custody is subject to the same responsibility as a bailee. 72, liability of person to whom money is paid or thing delivered by mistake or under coercion. A person to whom money has been paid or anything delivered by mistake or under coercion must repay or return it. Illustration. First, A and B jointly owe 100 rupees to C. A alone pays the amount to C and B, not knowing this fact, pays 100 rupees over again to C. C is bound to repay the amount to B. Second, a railway company refuses to deliver up certain goods to the consignee except upon the payment of an illegal charge for the carriage. The consignee pays the sum charged in order to obtain the goods. He is entitled to recover so much of the charge as was illegally excessive. Chapter 6 of the consequences of breach of contract. Section 73, compensation for loss or damage caused by breach of contract. When a contract has been broken, the party who suffers by such breach is entitled to receive from the other party who has broken the contract compensation for any loss or damage caused to him thereby, which naturally arose in the usual course of things from such breach, or which the parties knew when they made the contract to be likely to result from the breach of it. Such compensation is not to be given for any remote and indirect loss or damage sustained by reason of the breach. Compensation for failure to discharge obligation resembling those created by contract. When an obligation resembling those created by contract has been incurred and has not been discharged, any person injured by the failure to discharge it is entitled to receive the same compensation from the party in default as if such person had contracted to discharge it and had broken his contract. Explanation: in estimating the loss or damage arising from a breach of contract, the means which existed of remedying the inconvenience caused by the non-performance of the contract must be taken into account. Illustration: first, A contracts to sell and deliver 50 mounds of saltpeter to B at a certain price to be paid on delivery. A breaks his promise. B is entitled to receive from A, by way of compensation, the sum, if any, by which the contract price falls short of the price for which B might have obtained 50 mounds of saltpeter of like quality at the time when the saltpeter ought to have been delivered. Second, oh my god. Oof. This illustration, read by yourself. Okay? Yes. It should be okay. Okay. Section 74. Compensation for breach of contract where penalty stipulated for. Section 74. Compensation for breach of contract where penalty stipulated for. When a contract Section 74. Compensation for breach of contract where penalty is stipulated for. When a contract has been broken, if a sum is named in the contract as the amount to be paid in case of such breach, or if the contract contains any other stipulation by way of penalty, the party complaining of the breach is entitled, whether or not actual damage or loss is proved to have been caused thereby, to receive from the other party, from the party who has broken the contract reasonable compensation not exceeding the amount so named, or as the case may be, the penalty stipulated for. Explanation: a stipulation for increased interest from the date of default may be stipulation by way of penalty. Exception: when any person enters into any bail bond, recognizance or other instrument of the same nature, or under the provision of any law, or under the orders of the central government or of any state government, gives any bond for the performance of any public duty or act in which the public are interested, he shall be liable upon breach of the condition of any such instrument to pay whole sum mentioned therein. Explanation: a person who enters into a contract with government does not necessarily thereby undertake any public duty or promise to do an act in which the public are interested. Okay. Illustration A. A contracts, first one, A contracts with B to pay B rupees 1000 if he fails to pay B rupees 500 on a given day. A fails to pay B rupees 500 on that day. B is entitled to recover from A such compensation not exceeding rupees 1000 as the court consider reasonable. Okay. Second, A contracts with B that if A practices as a surgeon with Calcutta, he will pay B rupees 5000 A practices as a surgeon in Kolkata. B is entitled to such compensation not exceeding rupees 5,000 as the court considers reasonable. Third, A gives a recognizance binding him in a penalty of rupees 500 to appear in court on a certain day. He forfeits his recognizance. He is liable to pay the whole penalty. Okay. D. A gives B a bond for the repayment of rupees 1,000 with interest at 12% at the end of 6 months, with a stipulation that in case of default, interest shall be payable at the rate of 75% from the date of default. This is stipulation by way of penalty, and B is only entitled to recover from A such compensation as the court considers reasonable. Fifth, A, who owes money to B, a money lender, undertakes to repay him by delivering to him 10 mounds of grain on a certain date, and stipulates that in the event of his not delivering the stipulated amount by the stipulated date, he shall be liable to deliver 20 mounds. This is a stipulation by way of penalty, and B is only entitled to reasonable compensation in case of breach. F. A undertakes to repay B a loan of rupees 1,000 by 5 equal monthly installments, with a stipulation that in default of payment of any installment, the whole shall become due. This stipulation is not by way of penalty, and the contract may be enforced according to its terms. And G. A borrows rupees 100 from B and gives him a bond for rupees 200 payable by 5 yearly installment of rupees 40, with a stipulation that in default of payment of any installment, the whole shall become due. This is a stipulation by way of penalty. Section 75. Party rightfully rescinding contracts entitled to compensation. Party rightfully rescinding contracts entitled to compensation. A person who is rightfully rescinds a contract is entitled to compensation for any damage which he had sustained through the non-fulfillment of the contract. A person who rightfully rescinds a contract is entitled to compensation for any damage which he had sustained through the non-fulfillment of the contract. Illustration: A singer contracts with B, the manager of a theatre, to sing at his theatre for 2 nights in every week during the next 2 months, and B engages to pay her 100 rupees for each night's performance. On the 6th night, A willfully absent herself from the theatre, and B is consequence rescinds the contract. B is entitled to claim compensation for the damage which he had sustained through the non-fulfillment of contract.